I'm going to explain this chapter to you, so here we go. I knew him from the days of my extreme youth, because he made my father's boots. So the author, the narrator, says here that he knew. He knew the character here, the chief character here, from his latter youth, because he made his father's boots. That is, his father's boots were made by this man only, and since the father used to visit that shop and he accompanied his father, so he knew him, say, since then. He lived with his elder brother in his shop, which was in a small by street in a fashionable part of London. So this shop was situated in a by street, say in a lane in fashionable part of London. That is, it was situated in London, but in a lane, and that was a very fashionable part of London. What else is mentioned here? He lived with his elder brother, and both of them lived in the shop itself. The shop had a certain quite distinction. There was no sign upon it other than the name of Gessler brother. Okay, so the shop was quite different from the other shops because it was plain. It was no decoration. It was not made very fashionable. It didn't have a fashionable look, say. So very plain shop, very simple and plain shop. And outside it, it had only carried the nameplate or say signboard, the name of, not the nameplate, but the signboard, which only carried the name of the shop and nothing else. It mentioned only Gessler brother. Besides this, no other writing on the signboard, no claims, nothing at all. Everything about the shop was quite simple, quite plain. And in the window, a few pairs of boots, and there in the window, display window, there were only a few pairs of boots. That is, even they didn't put a lot of boots on display. Okay, so he made only what was ordered, and what he made never failed to fit. So what is said about him, he only made boots to order. That is, he made boots when ordered by someone. It was not like he would just make boots and then sell them, but he would only make the boots to order, when ordered. And his boots were so superb, they never failed to fit. They always fitted so fine. To make boots, such boots as he made, seemed to me then, and still seems to me, mysterious and wonderful. So, the boots that he made were at that time when father bought boots from the shop, and now when the author himself bought boots from the shop, on all the occasion, all the while, the boots seemed very mysterious to him and very wonderful at the same time. That is, they were quite strange and they always puzzled the author. I remember well my shy remarks one day while stretching out to him my youthful food. "Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Gessler?" So the author remembered his remark that he made once when he went into the shop and extended his foot for the measurement and all, when he stretched out his foot, he just made a remark. He said, "Isn't it awfully hard to do? Isn't it very hard to make such a boots that you make?" And his answer, given with a sudden smile from out of his redness of his beard, "It is an art." And he answered with a smile, and he said, "It's an art. It's nothing but an art." It was not possible to go to him very often. His boots lasted terribly, and going to Mr. Gessler, visiting the shop was not easy or could not be frequently made because his boots lasted terribly. His boots had longevity. Having something beyond the temporary, some essence of boot stitched into them, or they were having longevity. It was not temporary. That is, his boots were beyond temporary. It was something like permanent. You bought once, and you need not buy the second one, or say once you bought it, you needed not buy the second one. It felt to him as if some essence of boot making stitched into them. That is, some kind of lifeblood, some kind of the secret of boot making was stitched into those boots that they last so long. One went in, not as into most shops, but restfully. And going into his shop was not like entering other shops, but one could only enter his shop just like one visiting, one going to a church, a temple, and go so quietly. In the same way, one had to enter his shop. There was no noise inside. There was complete peace. And sitting on the single wooden chair, waited, and as you went in, there you found only one wooden chair placed for the customer to sit there. Wooden chair waited. A guttural sound and tip-tap of his slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, and he would stand before one without coat. Okay, so as the customer entered, and he gave a call to Mr. Gessler, he would appear there with a guttural sound, with a harsh, a gruff voice. He would appear there, and with the tip-tap of slippers. That is, as he approached the customer from upstairs, so there would be the tip-tap of the slippers beating the wooden stairs, and there would be a gruff voice heard as he would approach. And then suddenly he would be before the customer, who would be there without a coat. A little bent, in leather apron, with sleeves turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots. And then there would appear a man, a little bent, with leather apron and with sleeves turned back, blinking his eyes, winking his eyes, as if awakened from some dream of boots. As if looking at him, one would assume that he was just getting up from his dreams of boot. And I would say, "How do you do, Mr. Gessler? Could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots?" And then you just greet him and say if he could make him Russian leather boots. he would leave me retiring whence he came, or into the other portion of the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. So, what's said here? Without a word, as the author ordered him a pair of Russian leather boots, so without wasting a minute, a second, he would retire, he would leave, he would go back from where he came, or he would go into the other portion of the shop, and while he was away, the author was left there alone to rest in the wooden chair, same wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. That is, he was left there, and he was left there to inhale, to take in the air, the smell that the leather would give off in this shop. So he would enjoy the scent, the aroma that would be in the shop. Soon he would come back holding in his hand a piece of gold brown leather, and soon, in no time, immediately he would return. This time he would return with a piece of gold brown leather in his hand. His eyes fixed on it, he would remark, "What a beautiful beast!" And he would reach there, he would come to the author, looking at the continually looking at the piece of leather, the leather in his hand, and would then remark, "What a beautiful beast, that is, what a beautiful piece it is." When I too had admired it, he would speak again, "When do you want them?" Again, when the author too found the leather of a very good quality, when even the author admired the leather, or the owner of the shop, that is Mr. Gessler, would ask him when he needed the boots. When I would answer, "Oh, as soon as you conveniently can," and he would say, "Tomorrow fortnight," or if he were his elder brother, "I will ask my brother." So then the author would answer, "Oh, as soon as you conveniently can," as soon as you can make them to your convenience, to say your comfort. As soon as you can comfortably make them, then he would remark, "Tomorrow fortnight," that is on the 15th day. Next day to the fortnight, that is on the 15th day, you can get them. Or if it were his brother, if it was not him but his brother, that is Mr. Gessler's elder brother, in case it was Mr. Gessler's elder brother, in that case he would say, "Let me ask it to my brother, as when we can give you this order, when we can complete this order." That is, the elder brother, without asking his younger brother, would not commit a word. Then I would murmur, "Thank you, good morning, Mr. Gessler, good morning." He would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand. Okay, then he would murmur, "Thank you." He would just softly say, the author would softly say, "Thank you," and then he would wish him and Gessler to return his wish, and then he would leave while Mr. Gessler would continue to look at the letter in his hand. And as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip-tap of his slippers going up the stairs to his dreamer boots. And then as he would approach the door of the shop, he could hear the tip-tap of Gessler's slippers as he would retire to his workshop, to his room where he prepared his boots. I cannot forget that day on which I had occasion to say to him, "Mr. Gessler, that last pair of boots creaked, you know." Okay, so here the author points out to a particular incident. And he says that he cannot forget that incident, that particular event, when he had the time, when he had the opportunity to complain it to him, saying, "Mr. Gessler, your last boot creaked." Now answer, let's see what reply came from him. He looked at me for a time without replying, as if expecting me to withdraw or quickly qualify the statement, then said, "It shouldn't have creaked." Okay, so after that, making this comment, as the author made this comment, Mr. Gessler looked at the author for some time without replying, as if expecting, without giving him any reply, without making a comment, as if the author realized that he looked at him with the expectation that he would take back his words or qualify or give more details of it. Then finally remarking, Mr. Gessler would say, it shouldn't have creaked, that it shouldn't have creaked. The boots shouldn't have creaked. If it did, I'm afraid, the author remarked, "It did, I'm afraid. I'm very sorry to inform you that those boots creaked. You got them wet before they found themselves." And then he would remark that you must have got them wet. You drenched the boots before you found those sounds, those noise from the boot. "I don't think so," he said. "No, I don't think so that I ever got them drenched, I ever got them wet." At that he lowered his eyes as if hunting for memory of those boots, and I felt sorry I had mentioned this grave thing. "Send them back," he said. "I'll look at them." Okay, after that, as the author said that I'm sorry I never got them wet, then he lowered his eyes as if he was hunting for those memories of the boot when he got one wrong, when he made a wrong boot. But there was nothing in the history of his boot making that he ever made a wrong boot. So finally he asked him to send those boots back, saying that he would look at them, he would look at the problem of those boots. And then replying, then again saying, continuing and saying, "Some boots," he continued slowly, "are bad from birth. If I can do nothing with them, I take them off your bill." He said some boots are wrong from birth, from the very first day of manufacturing, or say in its product only, that is raw material only, there remains some fault, and because of that only some boots may give you some trouble, may be a little, say, uncomfortable or not proper, improper. So he said, if let me check them. If I can do nothing to them, I'll take them off your bill. I'll take them. That is, I would deduct, or I would deduct that amount from your next bill. Once, once only, I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firm. So once, the author recounts an event whereby he went into the Gessler's shop just casually, not as planned previously. Just casually he walked into his shop. Here, what was special? What was say? What was special here? That he was wearing shoes or the boots that was not bought from Gessler's shop. From that shop, it was bought in an emergency from some large firm, from some large company, a big company. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior covering of my foot. So here, on that day, he didn't show author any leather. What he did always, in all the previous occasions, he always showed the customer a piece of leather, but here on that occasion he didn't show any leather to him, but he looked at the inferior, that is low quality of leather, up the boot that the author was wearing. At last he said, "Those are not my boots." And at last, finally, he could not stop himself. He could not hold himself back. Finally, he just spoke. He just spoke out. He said, "Those are not my boots. Those boots are not bought from here, or those are not the boots made by me." The tone was not one of anger, nor of sorrow, not even of contempt, but there was in it something quiet that froze the blood. Now, what the author felt, that his tone, the tone of his voice was not that of anger. There was no anger, there was no sorrow in his tone. There was not even contempt, some kind of, say, hatred, some kind of bad feeling for the other company. But there was something in his voice that froze him, that froze author's blood, that, say, turned author into a statue. He could not react, he could not respond. He just stood still, or he just sat still without any movement. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot was not quite comfortable. He just put his hand down and pressed a finger at the place on the left side, that is on the left boot, where it was giving him some trouble, where it was not comfortable. That is, he pressed that particular part of his left boot, of his left foot, where the boot was giving him some trouble. It hurts you there, he said. Those big worms have no self-respect. That is, he said, it hurts you there. It gives you pain there at this place. He said those big firms have no self-respect. These big firms, they are big companies, but they have no self-respect. They have no pride of their own. They have no honor. They have no respect for their job. They don't care much about their work. And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. It was the only time I ever heard him discuss the conditions and hardship of his trade, and after that he started to open up his heart, and then he kept on, for some time, he kept on speaking about the condition and the hardship of his trade, and that was the only occasion when he spoke of his trade. Never before did he speak about his trade. That was the only occasion when he ever spoke of it. They get it all, he said. They get it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us who love our boots. It comes to this. Presently, I have no work. Okay, so, then he just spoke his mind, and he was just expressing the pain that he was having within him. So what he said, they get it all. They get it by advertising. They get it all. They get all the customers simply by advertisement. They advertise. They put up advertisements here and there, and by advertisement they take away all the customers, and not by work, not by their quality, just simply by their advertisement, and they take it away from us, and they take it away from small bootmakers like us who love our boots, those bootmakers who love their work. It comes to this presently I have no work, and it has come to such a situation that I have no work currently, that presently at present time I don't have any work, I don't have any orders with me. Every year it gets less, you will see, and every year the number of customers is sinking, is going down. You'll see. And looking at his line face, I saw things I had never noticed before. And looking at his face, his line face, there were lines on his face, and I saw things I had never noticed before. And looking at his face, those line face, he saw things that he never noticed on his face. Bitter things and bitter struggle, and what a lot of gray hairs there seemed suddenly in his red beard, and there were say bitter things and bitter struggle on his face. And suddenly there came up a lot of gray hair from his red beard. As best I could, I explained the circumstances of those ill-omened boots, but his face and voice made so deep an impression that during the next few minutes I ordered many pairs. They lasted longer than ever, and I was not able to go to him for nearly 2 years. And here he tried to give his best explanation to explain the circumstances by which he had to buy those boots. But his face and voice made so deep imprint, so deep mark on his heart that during the next few minutes he ordered a lot of boots. Many boots he ordered, and they lasted longer than ever, and the quality was ever good, was better than before, and that he was not able to go to him for the next 2 years because of these good quality boots. He could not visit the shop for the next 2 years. It was many months before my next visit to his shop, so it took Arthur a lot of time before he could make next visit to his shop. This time it appeared to be his elder brother handling a piece of leather, and this time the one who came down to meet the customer appeared to be Senior Gessler. Not the younger brother, but the elder brother came down, it appeared, to the author, and he was, as usual, having a piece of leather in his hand. Well, Mr. Gessler, I said, how are you? He came close and peered at me. I'm pretty well, he said slowly, but my elder brother is dead. So, as the bootmaker came closer, he inquired of him. He said, how was he? He just inquired of him, his health and all, business and all. And he came closer. Mr. Gessler came closer and peered and looked very closely at the customer and said, I'm pretty well. I am pretty well, he said slowly, but my elder brother is dead. But he softly said, but my elder brother is dead. And I saw that it was indeed himself, but how aged and wan. And when he too looked at him closely, from close quarter, he realized that it was indeed Mr. Gessler and not his elder brother. But he looked aged, he looked quite old, older than usual, and looked quite, pale, quite, weak. And never before had I heard him mention his brother. Earlier, when he made the previous visits, he never made any mention of his brother. That was the first occasion when he spoke of his brother. Such much shocked, I murmured, "Oh, I'm sorry." He was very much shocked, and he simply said in a low voice, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry." The author uttered these words. The author mentioned in this way. "Yes," he answered, "he was a good man. He made a good boot." Gessler said, "Yes, he was a good man, and equally good was his skill, his art. He made good boots, but he's dead." But he just repented, or he was just feeling sick. He said, "But he's dead." And he touched the top of his head where the hair had suddenly gone as thin as it had been on that of his poor brother. And then suddenly he touched, saying this, he touched the top of his head where the hair, number of hair had gone very thin, the same way as it was on the head of his brother, elder brother, to indicate, I suppose, because of his death, that was just to indicate that he had gone very weak, he had gone very old, and that was the cause of his death. Do you want any boots? And he held up the leather in his hand. It's a beautiful piece. And then he asked, then he inquired him if he needed boots. And holding, extending the piece of leather that was in his hand, he said, it's a fine piece of leather. Beautiful piece. I ordered several pairs. It was very long before they came, but they were better than ever. One simply could not wear them out, and soon after that I went abroad. So he gave several orders for several pairs, that is, say 5, 6 at a time, and then it took a very long time before the order reached, because he was now left alone, and alone he had to finish all the work, so it took him quite a lot of time to finish the order. But when he got the order, they were all better than before, and one could not wear them out. That is, one could not say make them rough using it. However hard, however rough you use, however casually you use them, they would not get damaged in any way. There'd be no wear and tear. But after that, after some time, after receiving that order, he went abroad. He went to some foreign trip, a foreign tour, say. It was over a year before I was again in London, and there he stayed for a long time. He stayed there for 1 year, and after 1 year only he could return to London. And the first shop I went to was my old friends, and the first shop that he visited after returning London, after coming back to London, was Gessler's shop. I had left a man of 60. I came back to one of 75, pinched and worn, who genuinely this time did not at first know me. And just a year back, when he met him, he looked 60. That is, he looked as if he was 60 years of age. And just after a year, when he returned and met him, he looked someone of 75. As one of 75 years, he looked very worn, very weak, looked ill, sick too, who genuinely this time did not at first know me. And this man, this Mr. Gessler, at first look did not recognize the customer, his regular customer. That was quite shocking to him. Do you want any boots? He said. I can make them quickly. It is a slack time. He said, do you want any boots? If you want boots, I can make them in quick time, because it's a slack time. That is, the business is quite low, quite idle. That is, during some time of the year, the business gets very poor. You don't get much business, and that is called slack time. So that was the slack time of the year, and he said he could quickly make boots. I answered, please, please, I want boots all around, every kind. He said, yes, yes, please, I want boots, lot of boots everywhere. I want boots everywhere in my house, and every kind of boots that you can prepare, you can make. I had given those boots up when one evening they came. One by one I tried them on, and he had given those boots up. That is, he had just gave up the hope that he would ever receive those boots, he would ever receive the order. But then one evening they reached. One by one I tried them, and one by one he tried all the boots in shape, in fit, in finish and quality of leather. They were the best he had ever made, and he tried them all in every respect. The quality of boot was excellent, better than before. I flew downstairs, wrote a check, and posted it at once with my own hand. He went downstairs and then wrote a check and then posted it personally. A week later, passing the little street, I thought I would go in and tell him how splendidly the new boots fitted. Okay, so a week later, a week after that incident, after posting, say, the check, he was just passing by that street, and then he thought of just paying a visit to him and to just tell him how nicely the boots fitted him. But when I came to where his shop had been, his name was gone. But when he reached that spot where his shop was, the name, the signboard was gone. I went in much disturbed. In the shop, there was a young man with an English face. So, as he found the signboard missing from the shop, he was disturbed. He got very, worried, anxious about the matter. He wanted to know as what had happened. What was the case? So he went in, and in the shop there was a young man with an English face. And when he entered the shop, he found an Englishman sitting there with an English face. Let me tell you here that Mr. Gessler was a German, and that's why he used to say bees for peace. He couldn't utter P, and in place of P he would say B, because of the German accent. So there was an English face. Mr. Gessler in? I said. No, sir. He said, no, but we can attend to anything with pleasure. We have taken the shop over. Now, as he was very much curious to know as where he had gone, so he asked if Mr. Gessler was in. And the man answered, no, sir, but we can take your order. We're ready to take your order with pleasure. We have taken the shop over. He said, or that we have bought this shop over from Mr. Gessler. Say, from Mr. Gessler. Yes, yes. I said, but Gessler. He said, yes, yes, okay, fine. But what about Mr. Gessler? Oh, he answered, dead. He answered, the man answered, the Englishman answered, oh, he's dead. Dead? But I only received these boots from him last Wednesday week. But then he answered that, well, only last Wednesday, the previous week only, I received his boots, his order. Ah, he said, poor old man starved himself. He said, he was sorry at the condition of Mr. Gessler, and said, he starved himself. He was living in starvation, that is, he was going without food. He made himself to go without food. Slow starvation, the doctor called it, and the doctor said it was slow starvation. So this is all for now. Thank you. You see, he went to work in such a way, and he then continued to say, he informed him that, well, you see, his style of work was such that he couldn't earn a lot of money, would keep the shop on, wouldn't have a soul touch his boots except himself. He would just keep the shop on. He would never shut the shop. That is, he would continue to pay the rent and all, and then he would not allow any other soul. That is, he would not keep any laborer, he would not hire any labor. That is, he had no faith on laborers, and that's why, as he could not grow his business, and that's why he had to lead such a life, and he had to die of starvation. When he got an order, it took him such a time. And when he got the order, since he was alone, I would say both the brothers worked, and he didn't hire a worker. So in such a case, the order that he received took him such a long time to complete that people won't wait. People won't wait for such a long time. He lost everybody, and there he would sit, going on, and in that way he was losing his customers, because customers won't wait for such a long time, and that he lost customers after customers, one after the other, and that way he would sit, he would have no work, and he would go without work. I will say that for him, not a man in London made a better boot, but I have high appreciation for his art. For there is not a man in London, there is no such, there is no such artist, say, or craftsman as Gessler there in London, who could make such a boot. Who could make a better boot than him? But look at the competition. He never advertised, but you have to take care of all the things. The competition so high, and he never advertised. Would have the best leather too, and do it all himself. He used the best quality leather, and he did it all by himself. Well, there it is. What could you expect with his ideas? And with his ideas, with the kind of idea he had, you cannot expect much. You cannot expect the man to earn a lot of money. And that's why he had to starve. But starvation, with that idea, with his kind of ideas, a man can only starve. That may be a bit flowery, as the saying is, that may be a little, say, fancy to say, as the saying is, but I know myself, he was sitting over his boots day and night. It would be a little flowery, it would be a little, say, ornamental, little fancy, little rhetorically saying to say that with his kind of ideas you can only starve. But that's the saying. But I know myself. I know myself. He was sitting over his boots day and night. But I know he was sitting over boots day and night. That is, he had such a love, such a passion for his art, his work, that he always remained with his boots. He always thought of his boots and nothing else. To the very last, you see, and he could only think of his boots till the very last, till the end. I used to I used to watch him. Never gave himself time to eat. Never had a penny in the house. And he said, I watched him. Never gave himself time to eat. He never cared to eat. That is, he never allowed himself the time for the meal. That he was so much busy, he was so much absorbed in his work. He had such love for his work that he didn't care food. He didn't save money in his house. That is, he had no penny in his house. He didn't care for saving money. He had, in fact, no money in his house. He went in rent and all went in rent and leather. All the earnings, all what he earned went in either rent or leather. He bought the best quality leather, never compromised with the leather. And the second thing, if you buy the best quality leather, you have to pay high price, and then second part of the money went in paying the rent. So everything what he earned was all would all go in these two things only. How he lived so long, I don't know. And he said that it's a mystery to me. I don't find an answer how he survived for so long. He regularly let his fire go out. And he would let his fire go out. That is, you'd not even have enough money to burn the lamp in his house at night. Sometimes the lamp would go out. There'd be no oil and it would go out, extinguish. There'd be no flame there. Say, he was a character, but he made good boots. He was a character. Not in wrong sense, not in bad sense, but he had high praise. He said he was a character. He was a good character, great character. He was a man of character, but he made good boots. But even greater was his art of boot making. He had a good character, but even greater was his boot making skills. Yes, I said he made good boots, and the author too said that yes, he really made, indeed he made good boots. So this is all for now. Thank you, and with this we have come to the end of the chapter. Thank you all.